can keep growing, are more skewed to the bottom consumer, and actually, although they are being impacted by some of these inflation numbers, actually continue to do quite well. So definitely looking to kind of risk off within that market. Certainly at the moment where there's still a lot of questions, and as I mentioned, regulation within China very much an unknown, and almost anything could happen. So not willing to kind of go in there yet.
You mentioned some of the inflation numbers. In general, what do you make of the data coming out of the region? Are you concerned about a slowing pace of growth from China?
Yes, and I think, there's lots of discussion around the energy crunch as well. China very much skewed in terms of real estate, financials, but also kind of materials and those energy names. And we're seeing as well, these companies being asked to step in and buy at prices that, they probably don't really want to, and securing those supplies. So that's going to hit them as well. The delta that we have in terms of the change within China, and also the size of that economy is so huge, and the visibility that we have is not very great. So yeah, still lots of question marks there, and quite concerned about the inflation and how quickly that can ramp up across the regions within China.
Really lovely set of insights this morning. Thank you for joining us. Portfolio Manager for Global Equities at Finance Fund Managers. Okay, from that Facebook to Mexico apologises for a global service outage that kept its social media apps offline for much of Monday. We'll look at the fallout from that next. This is Bloomberg.
Strongly at renewable, because it's not only the trend, also the future, and the technology is becoming cheaper. However, we also see that there's a big place still for hybrid power plants. Renewable power plants is also still very influenced also by environmental factors. So until we find the right balance, we'll keep expanding in all directions.
You've spoken about being a sort of guardian for the grid for the next generation. So what sort of footprint would you like to leave on the business?
We've grown a lot. We keep diversifying, we keep adding new businesses, and it makes it more and more complex. So I would hope that I can pass it on also in a way that makes it okay and easy for a new generation.
UBS, proud to present Bloomberg Generation Next.
They don't know what to say. Again, they can't even fathom that they're out of Afghanistan. They're still in a state of shock and can't believe it.
We have built through this process is essentially a mechanism for getting oppressed women and girls out of Afghanistan. So we're actually going to circle out and see what resources we have left, to see what options we have left, what mechanisms we have left, and actually look at potentially trying to get more women and girls out of the country as well.
Nothing more satisfying than knowing that you've saved many lives, and will continue to support these girls on their missions.
Welcome back to the Open. We're about 23 minutes into your European trading day. Mostly some solid rises here. We're looking at EDF at the bottom of your screen there. That's the French energy nuclear company. That's really where we're seeing a lot of these gains. These More sort of macro stories about energy helping to push us higher here, but elsewhere it's about a 0.5% gain for your Euro Stock 600. DAX, Caperon, both of those pushing higher as well. Let's stick with the tech story though, because obviously that was the source of a lot of pain yesterday, where Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg has apologized for a global service outage that kept its social media apps offline for much of Monday. For more on this story, we're joined by Bloomberg's Laura Wright. So Laura, bring us up to date. What happened yesterday that meant I, for hours, was not able to send a single WhatsApp?
Yeah, I experienced the same panic, Danny. Roger Hearing on radio says it was like being sent back to the 70s. And this is because a network configuration led to a global outage. 2.7 billion users across the platforms, Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp, unable to access them for over 6 hours. Even Facebook's own internal systems were down. As you mentioned, Mark Zuckerberg apologized, and engineers actually had to go on site to the servers to reset them in order to fix the problem. And this led to millions of downloads on Signal, which is an alternative messaging app. One key proponent there is Jack Dorsey.
How did it affect Facebook's stock then, Laura?
Well, Facebook was already under pressure yesterday, and that's because a former employee turned whistleblower gave an interview on CBS 60 Minutes. So at that point, the stock was trading down on Monday around 4.2%. When news of the global outages hit headlines, the stock closed down 4.8% and led to a broader tech sell-off. For instance, the Nasdaq closed down over 2% yesterday.
Okay, Laura Wright, looking at the Facebook story, that outage yesterday, the impact on the stock. Thank you very much indeed. Let's dig deeper into this story with Bloomberg's Rosalind Matteson. Ros, do these big outages feed into then the broader debate about regulation, the need for regulation of big tech, particularly on Capitol Hill?
Well, it certainly raises fresh questions about how all-encompassing these companies are, how an outage can affect millions or even billions of people and businesses around the world on multiple platforms, all owned by one company. And you saw the US Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez coming out already and saying Facebook is a monopoly whose reach needs to be broken up. And as Laura was saying, we have the Senate hearing, of course, in the US today with the Facebook whistleblower. So the timing for the company is not great. It shows several things, really. One is the vulnerability of the system to one company's outage for businesses as well as individuals and political groups, and the reliance of these individuals and political groups on WhatsApp for communications and their organization. So you can really see an opening of fresh front in that discussion.
So, Roz, less than a minute here, but I'm wondering, this isn't just a U.S. problem. How are governments around the world changing their stance when it comes to regulation on big tech?
Well, that's right. You see countries really rallying behind their criticisms of big tech, be it Facebook or ride-hailing companies or e-commerce giants questioning the power they have. You see probes of these companies not just in China, but in South Korea and Europe and elsewhere. And that's about a bunch of different things, that kind of monopolistic behavior in delivery of services like ride-hailing and e-commerce, or it's about the information that some companies facilitate, and whether that's enabling fake news, hate speech, and so on. But equally, it does risk becoming a bit of a
We're going to have to leave it there because we're running short of time, but thank you, Bloomberg's Ros Matteson. Plenty more coming up. This is Bloomberg.
Payment for order flow is controversial in the USA. It is prohibited on UK, Canadian, and other markets, but not when trading in the US. In the US, a market maker pays your broker to trade with your US stock order at a price he decides, but not at Interactive Brokers. We do not sell your order to a market maker. We try to match you up with an institutional order at a better price.
Looking for an advantage? Explore a country with vast natural resources, with diversified minerals to drive the green economy. A land full of potential and a young workforce, where mining has global ambitions. Be part of Africa's growth story. Advantage Angola.
Might it impact China's growth because it is already slowing? China's known for its carbon production. This is the latest shock to global supply chains, already delayed by, part delays, chip shortages, saddled with soaring commodity prices as well.
Well, Haslinda, when we've seen a lot of supply chain disruptions at the beginning of this COVID pandemic, and then, the supply chains became resilient, and goods around it, especially medical goods and supplies. But now, at this part of the pandemic, we're seeing disruptions again, and discontinuities, and that is because of what we spoke about, the demand that is pent up. And of course, if you have factories slowing down and not being able to produce as much, that is going to impact growth and the recovery.
Welcome back to the Open. We're 30 minutes into your European trading day. Here are your top stories. The global sell-off deepens. The S&P closes at its lowest since July amid concerns about surging prices. Asian stocks fall as another Chinese property developer misses a bond repayment. Facebook suffers a devastating outage across its most popular platforms. Millions flock to competitors, and Mark Zuckerberg's personal fortune plunges by $6 billion. And oil rallies to its highest since 2014 after OPEC Plus maintains gradual supply increases despite the energy crunch. Tom, I really feel like the story capturing markets yesterday, not least of which because people couldn't check their Instagrams, was this more than 2% sell-off in tech, has so many things to be concerned about. Of course, higher rates being one of them, that discount that you're going to get on the future cash flow.
Yeah, and there's a bit of dip buying, it seems, in Europe on the moment in technology, but how long that's going to be sustained? Our previous guest that we spoke to from M02 in the last couple of hours saying that, look, short-term value, cyclical, that still works. Longer term, there's an opportunity to pick up some of these growth names, but certainly the concerns about the yield story, that is front and center, slowing growth, the premiums that you're paying for some of these growth stocks. But right now, with the US 10-year relatively stable, at least in today's session, it seems like investors are getting back into technology, at least for now. The sustainability of that, of course, is in question. You have the likes of Deutsche Bank saying that the talk from their clients is very much about the concerns around